podcast where I, Richard Harris, talk about why I prefer the sports of the 80s and 90s to today. Oh, as the French say, aujourd'hui. That was bad pronunciation, my bad. And so, let's get it on. I am, and I have been, critical of this era in basketball because I think that it is too athlete centric. And what I mean by that is all about the players, not about the coaches. And when you watch the NBA in the 80s and 90s, it was about the players. And it was a little bit about the coaches. Talked a lot about Chuck Daly, talked a lot about Rick Pitino, talked a lot about Hubie Brown, Phil Jackson, Jerry Sloan. All the coaches put their physical imprints on teams and told their kids, told their players that if we're going to win, you're going to do it my way or the highway. And in some cases, they let players get away with stuff that they don't let other players get away with stuff. But it was a part of the team chemistry. The Celtics had a culture in the 80s that goes back to the 60s. Red didn't take no nonsense, neither did Casey Jones, neither did Chris Ford, Jimmy Rogers, all the way through Doc Rivers. They cared about winning. And in order to win on the good teams of the 80s and 90s, they had to get players to buy in to the systems and buy in to the results. The Chicago Bulls ran the triangle offense. Everybody knew that. But the bottom line is, in order for the triangle offense to be successful, you needed to buy into the offense, the ball movement. But what made the Bulls most successful was they played defense. The Lakers, what made the Lakers or Showtime so successful? See, we all saw the flash and dash of Magic coming down and making the passes and stuff like that. Well, in order to get to that point, you had to play defense to get the rebound and then start running and start gunning. And so I bring that up because number one thing today, they don't play defense. Statistics are tainted, just like I say about the NFL. Statistics are tainted because the rules in the games are different. But most importantly, the reason why I think they don't play defense in the NBA is when you're drafting kids onto your teams, you're not saying to yourself that this guy can play defense. When you're drafting kids to your team, you're saying this guy can score. And you don't pay attention to defense. You want to see this person play, see him run and gun, see him do all the things that he needs to do to help you win offensively. And I'm not blaming Steph Curry because of the fact that everyone blames Steph Curry for why the game is being played today, where teams just don't want to play defense, number one, and they just shoot 3-point shots. And It's not good for basketball, and it hurts every aspect of the game because you got to play a little defense. And if you don't play any defense, you're not going to win anything. And currently in the NBA, we have two teams that have lost more than 15 games in a row. And the one thing both teams have in common is they're all babies. They have all players who are 23 and younger. And they don't know how to play the NBA. They should be in college learning how to play, not even the G League, not even Europe. They should be in college learning from the Rick Pitino's, the Mark Fews, learning from the coaches that Bill Selfs, to teach them Hubert Davis's how to play pro basketball, how to play team basketball, and most importantly, wait for it, how to play defense and how to play basketball. You say, wait a minute, Richard, you're saying these kids don't know how to play basketball? They don't know how to play basketball. No, they don't. They get on the court, they make a couple shots from 25 feet and beyond, and everyone says they're a pro. And they're not a pro. Sometimes it's just luck. I can make a shot from 25 feet, and I'm 55 years old. So am I an NBA player? No. I can make two shots from 25 feet, 28 feet. You give me a basketball, you give me 2 weeks to build up some wind. I can guarantee you, if we did the around the world thing, out of 25 shots, I can make 18. My best ever was 22. And so I can shoot. And so maybe that's why I'm bitter towards the NBA because I could shoot and I could be playing. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Ha, ha, ha. But the fact of the matter is, there are two teams right now. The first team is the Detroit Pistons, who are a proud franchise. They won multiple championships in the 80s and 90s. They won because they played defense. They won because they played as a team. They won because they were smart. They won because they shared the basketball. This Detroit team is young. They got a lot of athletes. They got people who can play. But the fact of the matter is, they can't play together because they don't know how to. And poor Monty Williams is tasked with the task of trying to teach them how to play. And he not only has to teach them how to play, he has to teach them how to play in the NBA setting. And that's not easy because a lot of these kids don't understand the concepts of basketball. Simple. And to some people, it's not simple. To me, it's simple because I was taught it. I was taught the fundamentals of the game. I was taught how to pass and move without the ball and screen and roll and rebound and position myself and to properly shoot. I'm just fat. But my point simply is it's really sad that these kids are in the NBA. Even Victor Wembanyama was supposed to be this revolutionary talent that was going to revolutionize the NBA. Everybody kept saying it. And they keep trying to pump him up to be bigger and badder and better than he is. And he's not at that level. To hear people say he was the greatest under 18 player they ever saw, or the greatest 19-year-old player, it's a lie. Because I know for a fact that Kobe Bryant, as an 18 and 19-year-old, pretty damn special. I know for a fact many players that age, what people are more enamored with, and they won't say out loud, is they were more just awed by his size. Just say they've never seen, and just come out and say that since Ralph Sampson, we've never seen a player that big who could play good basketball. Well, he's on a team with a bunch of young kids and a bunch of guys who've been traded and moved around the NBA a lot. And the only thing they want to do is shoot. The only thing they want to do is try to make sure that they are, you know, noticed. And that's the world of sports that we live in. We live in a world of sports today that embraces your celebrations more so than they embrace your performance. And I don't get it. You play to win the game, yes. You play to make money, yes. But the bottom line is you play to win. And if you win, all those things come to you. But not in the NBA, not in many other sports that are played today. Because as important as winning should be, winning isn't. Shohei Ohtani just got $700 million and he hasn't won anything. He's won at most, what, 10 games as a pitcher? 12 games as a pitcher? His team has been in fourth place, third place, fourth place every year. He's been in the Angels, and now he's a $700 million man. We haven't even begun to see the commercials for Victor because he's still kind of learning the language and he's kind of a shy kid. And that's exactly the point. He is a kid. If you see him play, if you go watch him play and just watch him, he looks like a lost kid. He looks like a deer in headlights. No one's saying he can't play. He just looks like, oh my God, I'm in the NBA. And if he's going to play against Kevin Durant, LeBron James, he's going to play well because he wants to show him and show them that he can play. But if he's going to play against the Houston Rockets, the Clippers, he's going to be intimidated to play against the Clippers because they're going to play him physically tough. The Houston Rockets don't have anybody for him to impress. So there's a whole bunch of guys who are like him, who are going at him to show him that he ain't spit. Same thing with Detroit. Detroit is filled with number 1 pick, number 2 picks, number 3 picks. And everybody is trying to show that they should have been drafted before them. And they are pounding them with no mercy. And that's scary. And that's sad because that losing streak for both of these teams could get pretty high. One team could set the record, and then the other team might break it after they set it. Because Detroit's got nothing. The Spurs have nothing. And it's not a case of somebody's coming back from the bench or from injury or gets traded to them and they all of a sudden get better. No. That's not happening. Tim Duncan's not walking through that door Joe Dumars is not walking through that door. They need somebody to teach. They need somebody not to coach. They need a player who won't tolerate the nonsense and make them behave and play and act like grown men. When Ja Morant comes back from Memphis, you will see a different team because he's talented, but you'll see a different team because Marcus Smart letting them know how it is. Look at Houston's improvement this year. Houston was garbage last year. They brought in some veteran players who are like, yo, this is how you play as a pro. And one of them's Dylan Brooks, who has been exiled because of his mouth. But he's taught them kids, hey, this is how you play. This is what you do. This is how you prepare. And in the 80s and 90s, you ain't had that. In the 80s and 90s, which is kind of funny, it was the exact opposite. It was the opposite because the veterans couldn't stand the rookies because the rookies were pretty damn good. I'm sure you've all heard the stories of Larry Bird when he was a rookie in '79, and Cedric Maxwell was a pretty good player for the Celtics and wanted to play Larry Bird one on one. Wanted to show Larry Bird that this is the NBA. You ain't this. And all of a sudden he said, oh, well, oops, wrong guy. And Stan Albeck was coaching, or Kevin Lockery was coaching the Bulls in the 80s. And he kept Michael Jordan on the bench as a rookie to start the season. And Michael came in his first game and went off, scored 19 points off the bench, and they put him back on the bench to bring in the starting players to try to win the game. And they didn't realize they were doing that with the rookie on the floor. And then supposedly the story is that the players knew right away. They said, "Yo, this dude is different. That he should be playing more." But nobody's going to say that out loud. They wanted to play. Same thing with Magic. Veteran players back in the day were all about themselves because the money wasn't great. I mean, it was great then, but if it was relative today, it was terrible. But the point is, the veteran players were scared of losing their jobs, so they didn't want to lose a spot to the rookies. And all the teams back in the 80s and 70s and 90s wasn't loaded with rookies. That's what's so funny about the NBA today. The teams are so loaded with kids. And some of these kids are really good. Paolo Banchero down in Orlando's turned them around. They're one of the best two teams in the East, record-wise. But the point simply is Detroit, Spurs need somebody, need a veteran to come in and say, this is how it's done. Not guys who ain't in the locker room every day who could show up and be like, well, in the 80s, we did it this way. Or in the 90s, we did it this way. No. They need somebody who's sitting on the bench with them. Keep their heads in the games, not the coaches. And then maybe that'll turn around their fortune. But like I said, Rick Pitino said it back in the day when the Celtics were struggling and he was coaching and he said, listen, Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish ain't walking through that door. Larry Bird ain't walking through that door. We got to win with what we got. And what the Celtics did, they got rid of him. They brought in Brad Stevens. And then they brought in Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. Changed everything. And that's why I don't like this era of basketball. I don't like this era of basketball because the roles are not defined. It is hot hand basketball. It's let's put four guys around and somebody who can rebound, but the other four guys just shoot. We'll just outscore you. That's not basketball to me. It's playground basketball. That's not winning basketball. Winning basketball is knowing how to run plays, is knowing how to outthink somebody, is knowing how to succeed. And these kids, sometimes coaches aren't necessary for everything. Can't bring in a teacher, a coach sometimes because players don't want to listen. Sometimes the teacher is teaching, but the players aren't listening, aren't executing it, aren't implementing it. And that is the problem. In Detroit, Spurs got a great coach. Monty Williams is a great coach in Detroit. But the fact of the matter is, he got the right players. Don't have the right players around the guy. And in Detroit situation, who is the guy? You get all them young kids. Nobody knows who the guy. Detroit, feel for you. Spurs, y'all sound like the once in a lifetime kid. You're never gonna trade him. So y'all need to figure it out. The worst record in the history of the NBA is 9-73. You don't want to be a part of that history.